Hey, Heidi-ho, it's Mitch Hill on episode number 100 of The Last Angry DJ. I am the Casey Hill from the 70s, and I enjoy being here to talk to you folks. And I can't believe it's been 100 times. I'm here with my fellow co-stars, Mr. What's his name? My good friend, Mark Giuliani, and Alex Knight, the illegitimate son of David Hasselhoff. And here we all are, the dynamic threesome that makes this show happen. Is that a real smile there, Alex, or a forced smile?
Oh, it's real. It's fine.
He said when
I'm happy
I
to
pick
be
on
here.
him, he said, see, I want to get that in writing, because he said before that this may be the last show. So it might be worth watching just to see if Alex says, that's it. I've had it.
It's like, Mitch, you ever watch, you ever listen to a radio show and the host doesn't realize that their mic is on, they're swearing, they're telling everybody how much they fucking hate their job, and they're Mitch, we're live. Oh, hey everybody.
You know, that's a wives' tale. It's supposed to happen, and maybe it does, but generally, any self-respecting radio person, if there's a mic in the room, they never say anything they don't want to go out over the air. Even if the mic is off and there's no on-air lights on, you just can't trust it. Ask presidents of the United States. They've been caught many a time with their
it
pants
happened
down.
to one of our syndicated shows. The guy was in a break, thought everybody nothing was going out, and our station got calls telling us to stop swearing on the air.
That's great. And that's Mark Giuliani, by the way. He owns a talk station, and we're just going to wing this show and open the lines up to you folks, our faithful listeners and viewers, to ask their questions. And we'll get into that in a second. But to start it out, here's Alex with his standard opening. Last to be heard here. We're going to have it rewritten and improved for the next time you see us. Right, Alex?
All good. Yeah, it's good to be here for episode 100. Hey, we made it. We're going to be talking about the show a little bit today, about the future, and we're going to be retooling and shutting down momentarily. No, I'm just kidding. But the show is evolving. It has to. That's how things get better. But thanks for joining us. If this is the first time joining the show, this is the show called The Last Angry DJ that traverses the world of old media and new media. So we talk about the world of terrestrial radio. We also talk about new media. So that's YouTube, podcast production, all sorts of production as well. And we answer your questions. Last week we had a great show where we answered a lot of viewer questions. So if you've got questions for us, you can always ask every week. We're always going to go through our standard topics, but we absolutely love hearing about all of that stuff. So please get those questions in. We're going to talk about that momentarily. But I'm going to introduce Mark Giuliani, president of Data Tech Visual, who knows a little bit something about radio. What's going on, Mark?
Data Tech Digital. How are you, Alex? Alex and Mitch, congratulations on your 100th episode. This is not many people make it to 100 episodes, and it's even harder to 101. So if you have questions, please ask your questions so I can read them. This is where you go, ask.thelastangrydj.com. That's ask.thelastangrydj.com. And Mitch, take it away.
Hey, have you all noticed how much more professional and more gravitas that Mark has since we started the show? He could barely speak when we started out. He had a really thick DC accent. And now he's completely neutral in his presentation. He's great.
Are you saying I was educated in Swamp Poodle Land? Because you would be correct.
Yeah, exactly.
The neighborhood of Swamp Poodle Land.
He's perfect in every way, except he just picks on Canadians all the time. It's really embarrassing.
Yeah.
He's always like pointing out the weird pronunciations and toques and maple syrup. It's just annoys the hell out of me.
I'm a true American hockey
So
fan.
stop that, because I love my friends up north. You know, I was born in Erie, PA. Might as well be in Canada.
Hey,
it probably
Alex,
is.
when was the last time you heard me pick on somebody Canadian?
I'm struggling to think. Something tells me that the information we're getting from Mitch is not actually factual, but I'm totally shocked. By the way, we just want to acknowledge the people that are piling into the chat here. Tony Mobley says, congratulations. Brian Miller, 1973, says, happy 100th. And do we have a cake? You know, I just realized that was a missed opportunity. I should have brought a cake. That was a bad, that's on me. I should have.
I was going to do an animation, and I said, who cares? Nobody wants an animation. So it's 100.
Maybe for episode 200.
We got to have some signal that you put up there. I'll do one of the zeros, and then Alex, you do the 1. and then put your finger up. And
well,
then,
I got to put my finger like this. What is this?
No, that's one reads from right to left.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Left to right, or whatever.
Okay.
And by the way, Tony, I just heard that Mark Giuliani over here, or where he was, wants to come on your talk show on Wednesday at 4 p.m. So, no, it's the 4th at 8 p.m. I got it right. So, can we make room for Mark Giuliani to join me as your guest? If it's too complicated, let me know. But we'll use this whole show to get that point out there so everybody understands. But yeah, we were talking before the show started about what it's like to deal with all of our own idiosyncrasies. And yes, I know I have the most issues, and I rub my co-host the wrong way in many different ways. But I don't really want to apologize for that, because it's like the lion tamer, complaining about the lions have an attitude. Well, of course they have an attitude. They're lions. And I'm the last angry, operative word, DJ. So it's my job to do things to make people angry. So, Alex, I apologize in advance for anything that I'm going to say during this show, just so we know what's going on. And Mark, you're generally there just to make a response by making a funny face at me when I say something edgy. So make the funny face. There it is. It's a cartoon face. We do a sound effect to go down. Scooby-Doo effect. So what's our first question? Yeah, exactly. What's our first question coming in, or comment, or rundown issue?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about our first topic, because we got a lot of stuff to discuss here today. But what has changed most in radio since we started The Last Angry DJ? Has anything changed?
I'm going to start. Yeah, definitely. A lot of things have changed. I think the word is affordability. I think that goes through just about everything, and not just in radio. Let's not stop at radio. Let's continue everything that you go out there. The electricity, the oil that you put in your car, the gasoline, whatever. It's affordability. And, radio is a little stressed financially right now anyhow, because it's going through changes. It's not gone, but it's going through changes. And when there's any kind of a stressful situation, when you're owned by a large conglomerate, the first thing they do is they start chopping they get a big spreadsheet, and they just start going, that DJ, he's gone. Mitch Hill, he's out of here. All of those things. So that's the biggest thing that I've seen since we've been sitting here for the last couple of years, going on 3 years, by the way, that radio companies are dealing with affordability. I think Mark needs to be heard from, because he's the guy that's actually using his credit card and reaching into his pocket. Mark, what's the biggest change for you?
I think the biggest change in radio over the past 3 years would be that it's finally starting to accept digital. It's been something that has challenged the industry. They wanted, in the beginning, they kind of ignored it and said, oh, no, we have our territory, and no, digital is never going to catch up to us. And I think now what they finally are realizing is that a large part of the population pulls out their phone and consumes media the way they want to, rather than 20 years ago being forced to watch 3 channels over the air.
And by the way, let me jump in here and say, what is your interpretation of the word you're using, digital? What is that exactly?
So it can be any type of platform that is based on IP, I would assume. I mean, I guess I haven't really thought about it in that much detail, but I would think you could summarize it by technology driven and distributed over the internet.
All right, Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the first thing that you said, Mitch, makes absolute sense. I 100% agree that the costs have changed. So I think sometimes we forget about the underlying backbone of what runs everything. And I'm not just talking about the equipment that it takes to run a production, whether it's a radio station or a YouTube show, a live stream, for example, or to do a podcast, or broadcast TV. There are so many efficiencies at various scales that we've seen even in the last 5 years. I mean, with massive increases in bandwidth, the cost of the hardware has come down. So the cost of networking equipment has come down to a degree. The cost of audio equipment has come down to a degree. to a degree, and also just think about all the modernization that's happened, even in radio stations, right? Moving all of your gear from analog to digital, getting rid of those old patch bays and punch blocks and all cleaning up all that wiring and improving your dynamic range, lowering the noise floor of your audio, just general quality of life improvements. Certainly the tools that allow you to produce a show, like the tools that we use to do this show, didn't exist 10 years ago. The tools that Mark is now using to revitalize his radio stations to make them more modern, which, by the way, I think he's doing a fantastic job and better than most radio stations. Those are all newer tools that have been developed in the last 5 years. And I think COVID also was a great sort of marking point where things really started to innovate. People started to innovate on tools and technology because they realized we don't know how long this thing's going to last with this crazy disease, and we need to develop ways of producing these shows. Like, how can we make a show and do it from home and have people work remotely? How can we make that happen and do it as good or if not better? And so that created an opportunity for people to develop a whole suite of new tools.
Yeah, it's a turning point. The COVID, the thing you bring up, Alex, is so great, is that everything bad that's happened to me in the last 2 to 3 years started with COVID. It's very interesting because it's kind of changed the way we work. It's changed our job descriptions. It's changed how we work. Like you say, working more from home. Not all, but most are working out from their home. And the things like Zoom, out of nowhere, Zoom became popular. It's now as generic as Kleenex is. You know, the term Kleenex. It's let's Zoom. It's a verb. It's a name. It's whatever. So it's that's kind of good. It's kind of bad. My job title has changed rapidly. I had a pretty big business, and I don't want to start doing the sad sack hour here because people are like, oh, here he goes again, launching into his woe is me. But I used to do a lot of video work with large pharmaceuticals and large corporations, and I did well. I had a safe income. That's gone. That business is gone. They have found different ways to be able to do that, either because people are more readily available with Fiverr and things like that, or AI is encroaching on that. It's changing that business. And why wouldn't it change radio? Or why wouldn't it change podcasting in the process? So it's affecting everything, very much like major things in our past and our history have changed things, like the automobile changed things, the Gutenberg press changed things, the industrial age. You know, there is the Stone Age, the Brass Age, the Industrial Age. Well, we're into the Internet age, and that was kind of foisted on us by the malady of COVID. It just sort of brought it all to fore. So things have changed rapidly, very fast in the 2 years we were. By the way, we've been here for 2 years. This is our third year of being here. So we hope that we remain relevant. I am literally the last angry DJ because I'm kind of upset about how what I used to do, and I used to be really good at it, is no longer relevant. I mean, I can't do it like I used to and expect to live off of it or to connect with people. If I start going into my radio jargon and doing my radio thing, people just stare at me. Watch how the other two guys do it. Hey, everybody, it's a sunny day out there. We're going to play some Seals and Crofts, Diamond Girl, here on WFIL. You know, see, it's like they just don't like to be communicated like that.
Well, you brought up a good point. I'm sure Mark has something to say about AI, too,
I have
because AI has affected everything, radio and any kind of production. I mean, it's affected what I do with video and audio production as well. I mean, Mark, how much of an impact has AI had on broadcast?
I think we need to take a step back. I don't think COVID had as big an impact as everyone wants to believe it did, because I think you have to take a step back to the public and small businesses having access to computers. That's when the change started, because that's when people started to be able to communicate with each other in different ways. That brought about email, that brought about social media, that brought about websites. It brought about a whole different way of changing things. And let me give you an example of an architecture firm that in the 1950s and 60s, if you started one, all you needed were a bunch of oak drafting tables, a couple of different French curves and triangles and a scale and some trace paper we call bomboid. That's what you needed. $300. You're all set up. You never had to renew a subscription. You never had to pay licensing fees. And that has transformed into, instead of $300 a desk, thousands, maybe $10,000 a year for that desk. So it's totally and it's not just architects. This is everybody. Think about radios. Think about how a radio station's changed. You'd never had one computer in the station, the studio that's on air. Our on-air studios now, I can't even count the number of computers in it, and the room's so hot. We've got spot coolers in it on top of the air conditioner. It was designed to cool the room in the 1990s. So,
well, tell me how many radio stations are not automated, that are actually there with turntables and cart machines and playing it like they used to in the old days.
We'll talk, so I can't answer that. But we have 10 hours of people, 10 hours a day during the weekday. People are in the studio on the mic. So,
well, that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot for a typical station.
Especially for a station in Market 134. I don't know anybody else
most radio stations out at 6 o'clock, everybody shuts the door and that place is empty. Yeah. And it's all being run automated by a computer or AI or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, we're 5
you know what? I get what you're saying about it's not COVID that changed it, but it was sort of the shearing point that forced people to embrace all those technologies that much more.
I agree with you. People couldn't get into the office anymore, so they were forced to learn how to do it over a computer.
Yeah,
if they
I agree with that.
Before, and I think it exposed many people to tools in the architecture industry we had been using for 10 years, 12 years, doing meetings over something like Zoom.
Yeah, I wouldn't be doing a podcast if it wasn't for COVID. Because I was introduced to people at office hours, then after hours, and learned a lot. Met these guys that are my co-host here on the program, the producer, the TD, the experts. It's a pleasure to have these as my friends, and that's one thing I want to say about having a 100th episode. Anybody could stick by my side for 100 shows are people that they've got my thank you for ever. Appreciate it, because I'm not an easy guy to get along with. Alex, you have a pained look on your face, or are you just passing gas? Wish I could have switched his camera to him.
Yeah,
he was either falling asleep or he had a horrible fart.
What was that? Can you start all the way from the top? Thanks.
No.
Oh, okay.
This is
I'm done. I'm done with that subject.
Anyway, no, but to your point, Mitch, yes, it's affordability, but not only is it affordability being challenged because of the economy, it's being challenged because we're going through an industrial revolution of today. Take
very well said.
Cars and airplanes and everything else. This is it. The computer, we're still making that transition to computers.
Very true.
And Ray Franklin agreed with me. Part of me. I don't know.
You got Ray to agree with you?
Ray says, I agree with Mark. Congratulations, guys, on 100.
All right, thank you, Ray. We appreciate it. Ray's our friend down in Florida, and he's an old buddy of mine from way back. And Ray, notice what I'm wearing? I'm wearing a turtleneck. No ironing for this turtleneck. He's always got on my case about my polo shirts. Always had the collars akimbo. Do you like that word, Alex? Akimbo? It's a good one. All right. Next rundown subject, Mark.
Okay, our next rundown subject is, what does the next decade look like for terrestrial broadcast?
Let's go to Alex for that one. I think Alex has something to say about that.
Well, I mean, I think you're going to see more of the same thing. I think radio stations are doing what they think they know best, and that's fine. And that seems to be working just fine for a lot of people. But also, let's not forget, there are a lot of smaller stations with smaller budgets that are not owned by big conglomerates. I think we're going to continue to see a lot of consolidation in that space. And it's not that big companies are impervious to layoffs as well, because we certainly have seen that. I mean, we've talked about it on this show, certainly in the United States, certainly in Canada as well. I mean, Chorus Entertainment too has had lots of layoffs, hundreds of people. They've fired, they've shut down lots of shows. I think we're going to continue to see a shrinking overall. So I think the next 10 years are going to be really rough for a select group of people. For sure, I think it's going to be continuing to be very difficult. I think in the music space, specifically in FM radio, I think it's going to be harder and harder to get people to listen to that stuff. Talk radio, I think, is different. I still see a value in talk radio. I tend to listen to a lot of those types of shows, but just radio FM stations playing music, I think you're going to have a real tough time keeping people engaged, and especially the current generation of kids growing up now, they're not listening to that stuff. I mean, they barely understand what it even is, to be honest with you.
Why would they go to a radio station that's playing what they think is the middle ground for music for all their people that listen to them versus going to Pandora or Spotify that has an algorithm that's serving up the exact thing that you like? I mean, why would you have to go outside of that? Because then you're making compromises. We had a 3-song rule that we used to play by when we programmed radio, and that was if the song playing right now is one you don't like, it's a song that you're not absolutely hate, so you're not going to leave the station. But the next song better be a song that you like better, and that was the 3-song rule. So if you played one, it's like but I'll hang in there a little longer. It's not turning me off. The next song better be one you like better. And it might be like, wow, that's outstanding. I really, really like that. And I'm going to keep listening to the station. The song after that better be a darn close one to that. But if if they play a song that you hate outright, the next one better be really, really, really good, because within that 3-song idea, that's the way we used to judge how we played what we played. I don't think those rules apply anymore. I think that's part of what's changed. You going to say something, Alex?
Yeah, it certainly is. But here's one thing that, it got me thinking when we were preparing for this show is on this specific topic, you got to realize too, like the people that are running radio stations now, there's a certain demographic, right? There's a certain demographic of people that are listening to the radio, probably it skews older, right? So probably 40 plus. Listening to the radio, and you got to be thinking, what about when all of these people just age out and start dying? Like who? So, and I don't mean to be glib, but you got to be thinking about if your business is completely dependent on this older generation, when they're gone, you've got no business. So what are you going to do then?
It's not just radio, Alex. Look at TV. If you're watching
that's dying too. TV.
Absolutely. I'm saying it's the same thing. It's not just radio. Because look at the advertisers that are on CNN or Fox or whatever. They're all pharmaceutical companies offering something that has something to do with ageism. Your prostate or your sex life or your weight loss or whatever else. It's like these are things that younger people could care less about. And they're not programming to them. So the same thing with radio is that you're going to hear more and more of that kind of chatter about older, irrelevant things to younger people. And I hear you what you're saying when age out and die. Thanks a lot. I'm 71. I don't know how many really good years I have left. But how much longer can I, be able to have a talk show and not be here drooling, which probably is my future. I'll be like, I'll be gone. I won't even really care. You could stick me in a box and play a music box, and I'll be happy with that. So I think it's across the board. It's affecting everything. We're in the middle of a big sea change in how we go for our entertainment, and it's all types of broadcasts are affecting it. And Mark is playing the violin. I had no idea, Mark, that you knew how to play a violin. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying this is the way it is.
It's not this way. You're making it like, oh my gosh, everything's dying. It's all changing. Look, here are the facts. The facts are that more people listen to radio than any other form of broadcasting that's out there. So
False.
Radio's not dying.
False.
Radio has to learn. Radio
I
has to
disagree
learn.
with you.
Well, okay,
I disagree with you. I
Just
think
look at the facts.
There's some
magazines.
good numbers there, but it's like point counterpoint here.
Well, here's what's changed. What has really changed? What is the generations
in-car listening
coming
has
up?
changed.
No. What's really changed is we've gone from a linear formatted TV guide type of consumption to being able to watch on demand. That's the biggest point that's changed, and that's why so many people watch YouTube, because they get to watch what they want to watch when they want to watch it. So broadcasting has to learn about that. Broadcasting has to start to reach out to social media. Broadcasting has to start to put everything that they do on a podcast or some different way that people can get it when they want to watch it, when they have time to watch it. And broadcast has to learn how to do things in shorter form because attention spans are getting shorter.
I agree with you. I'll give you a case in point that supports what you're saying. Stephen Colbert, for example, this is his last year. I guess he's gone now as of the 26th. I don't know when his contract is up. But the problem with him and other talk shows, the Tonight Show used to have about 70% of the viewing audience at after hours. No longer as it like that, and all those late night shows are going because people, like you just said, have a shorter attention span, and they'd much rather go to a YouTube. Oh, I just want to see the interview with Jim Carrey. That's all I want to see. So you can watch the interview of Jim Carrey. You don't have to go through a whole linear, the monologue and all that to get to that interview. You just want to do the short form of it.
Here's the real question. The real question is, how does radio or TV go ahead and start to move to digital without killing its advertising revenue? Because once you start to have your audience go somewhere else to listen to you, it's very hard to make money on the advertising that radio's made its money on for years. So you really got to start to think about, how are we going to make revenue off of digital? And I have not seen very many people generate revenue that can substantiate the expenses it takes and the resources it takes to do digital professionally.
Building a website is that you want to do everything you can to keep people from clicking away from your website. You want to keep them there on your site and continue to have them click. So that's why they have these outrageous stories, which are clickbait, and they continue to throw weird off-center things at people. So you're going to say something?
Yeah, I want to bring in, so I am going to read, this is fascinating to me because I just watched a really great episode of Joe Rogan's podcast with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. It's from 2 weeks ago. Okay, so these are two Hollywood A-list celebrities. They're promoting their new movie, right? But they go on a show like this. Now, they could do those late night shows, but they went on Joe Rogan, which is like typically a 3-hour conversation. They were on there for 2.5 hours. And right now, 5.5 million people have looked at that. But what's more interesting than just numbers, I want you to listen to what people had to say about this. This just goes to show you what younger people think of late night TV and those style of shows. These are all different people saying these comments. Hollywood has come to podcasts because late night is dead. Another person said, it's more authentic than a pre-made script and fake laughter. Another person said, where is it here? Let me just keep scrolling down. There's tons of these comments here about how late night is dead. Nobody watches broadcast TV anymore. Yeah. I mean, one person said, I watched this on they were talking about, one of the things that they talked about on the show is how movie theater viewership is kind of going away. And one person said, I watched this on my phone and you all look good. So there's a lot going on, I think, in the industry that we could use, not just broadcast TV, late night shows as being less and less interesting, but I think in general, all these older formats for shows are just not that interesting for a lot of younger people that are 20 years old and 25 years old. What do you guys think of these comments?
And the other thing to put on the list of things that are no longer relevant, and it's already the arrow has pointed that way. AM radio. What does it have to offer that FM isn't doing better or digital isn't doing better? The only thing AM offers is a little rule that the FCC came out with a few years back that said if you own a struggling AM radio station, you get a translator, and you get a translator, and you get they're able to get these low-powered FM signals that allow them to broadcast. How many AM radio stations are out there on the air just so they can broadcast on their FM translator? Mark, do you have any comment there?
So we have a tenant at our building in Seaford that has an AM station, and he has a 100-watt translator. Now, this 100-watt translator, I don't know, what do you say, 10 miles maybe in radius?
10 would be really good. Yeah, maybe more like 4.
And he's complaining about that. But when you look at his daytime AM signal, it's the whole peninsula. And I'm like, forget FM. just do AM. You've got more reach than any other station on, at least the FMs. You got more reach than any of the FMs. So just stay with the AM. I mean, AM, everybody kicks AM down, but AM signal power during the day is phenomenal.
Well, then I'll come back and say content. If you have something that people want, they're going to come and get it. And if AM is the only place they can get it, in spite of the noise and the other, issues, vagaries of AM radio, then they're gonna come listen to it. So, work on the content.
It's content.
Don't work on the coverage.
It is content because if you go look at YouTube, how many millions and millions and millions of hours a year get posted to YouTube, and how many are any good? A small fraction. But let's go to the chat because Brian Miller says local morning radio show has one half of the main show retiring at 64. Been at the station for nearly 40 years. Started this show in 1999. It's hugely popular, at least locally. I'm hoping his departure doesn't effectively kill the show. I've been listening to the show for 25 years. They had a big layoff 2 years ago for the first time. Times are changing. So you're getting a lot of that in radio, unfortunately, because the big stations have learned how to consolidate all of that production into fewer facilities and reuse it over more areas.
Yeah, well, in the 90s, a lot of those big companies started buying up radio stations, and some of them way over market value, so that they had all these stations. And all of a sudden, there was a downturn in the success and the listenership of those stations, and now they're suffering. And I think like half of the major top 5 that own radio stations are in bankruptcy or going into bankruptcy. What does that tell you? They can't afford
here's
to
what's
operate.
really interesting. The FCC's under review is going to possibly increase the number of stations a company can own in each market. And that may go
That's not going to fix it.
No, it's not going to fix it. I think it's going to go the other way myself.
Yeah.
But, I think it's going to make a mess of it because right now, depending on what market you're in, it's 4 or 5 FMs, and the rumors are it may go to as many as 7 or 8 FMs, and that's just going to push the small guy even further out, I think. But
all right, and unless Alex has something to say, why don't we move on to questions or next subject?
Let's do it.
All right, Mark.
Yep. What does the next step? Oh, sorry. I was rereading the same one. What does the next decade look like for modern media production? YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, et cetera, et cetera.
Let's go to Alex. He's our modernist guy here, and you're doing these programs.
Well, I don't know what's going to happen to TikTok. There have been ongoing conversations about what's going to happen with them there. I know that they are still a very viable and important platform. But the problem is, it seems that with the current regime, they don't really want the data hosted in China for obvious reasons. They don't like that they don't have control over the algorithm. So there's talk now about it being hosted in the United States. It still hasn't happened yet. So we'll see what happens. I have a feeling TikTok's going to stick around. I think it's going to remain a viable platform. Obviously, YouTube is going to have the lion's share of stuff for long-form content, but I think Instagram and TikTok are going to continue to be very, very popular platforms for short, bite-sized content, as we like to call it, sometimes snackable content, as some people call it. 60 seconds, 30 seconds, 90 seconds, all this type of stuff. I think those platforms are going to be very, very important. I know people that have built entire businesses around vertical video content. So I think there's going to be a continued push. You're going to see more and more people starting accounts on those platforms. YouTube, I think, is going to be more and more viable, but it's becoming very, very crowded now, or it is very crowded now. It's very hard to get noticed. So I think that's incredibly challenging, not impossible, but I think YouTube is the most important platform right now. We should also talk a little bit about podcasts, because I know a lot of people sort of lament the demise of podcasts, saying, oh, well, not as many, now with video and YouTube, YouTube and video is all the rage now. People aren't listening to podcasts. But every time I look at the data, it's funny. Now, in defending podcasts, just kind of like how Mark is defending radio based on actual numbers. So I think there's a bit of a disconnect between what people feel is going on, which is completely anecdotal, and the actual evidence based on actual surveys and data. So I think you need to look at that as well, is look at the actual data, because I've just read this week on podnews.net, they were talking about how lots of surveys now say that that YouTube is actually driving people to discover those shows in audio-only format. So they're getting subscribers coming from that platform because not everyone has the capability to watch those shows all the time, and people are commuting to work, right? So they need a distraction in their cars, very much like radio. Audio is a fantastic medium to convey that message, right? So it doesn't matter how it's broadcast, right? Whether it's over the air or over the pipes with digital bits, right? It's still a very viable platform, and I think there's still money to be made on these platforms.
Alex, do you think I should dump my MySpace account?
Very funny, Mitch.
What's MySpace?
Well, I hate to break it to you, buddy, but they shut that thing down a while ago.
I have my AOL account too. Is that still relevant?
No, that AOL's gone. Didn't they shut AOL down?
No, I still.
I don't know. I haven't gotten a lot of emails, so maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, I still get emails from people from AOL, but I
okay.
do want to point this out. I thought I had heard something, so I did. This is from ChatGPT, so take it for what it's worth. But it says a long-awaited deal was finalized on January 22nd, creating a U.S.-based entity called TikTok USDS joint venture to run TikTok in the United States. It was approved by both the U.S. and China, and it will be a consortium of American businesses, including Oracle, Silver Lake, and MGX.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, you know what? It's too late.
I did hear that Oracle was going to be hosting the data.
Let's let them. They have had the nails driven into their coffin. The kids are over on Instagram anyhow, so why should they bother with TikTok and their short little attention span theater? There's plenty of reasons why not to do it. And you know what? I think the longevity of any of these services, including Facebook, which is a giant monster out there, days are numbered. You know, they're not going to be as popular as they used to, tweeting, hey, the people tweet like they used to. All these things are changing. I think people have a short attention span for all of these programs, and it's waiting for the next one to come along. They all seem to be the ones that are working, the ones that are short, to the point, and consume the least amount of bandwidth in your day. Where you're going to go to. So I think that's the winning combination. And radio doesn't have that. It's still a linear medium, and it's good as a form of entertainment or information that you do with while you're doing something else. Like if you're driving your car to work or something, radio's fine. It does exactly what Mark was saying. It's providing information in a way that you don't have to participate in it. But if you're going to take a moment to engage your computer, and I want to know what the headlines are, what's going on in the world, you're going to use one of these services to get the information quickly encapsulated and packaged in a way that you can absorb that in a short amount of time.
Can I ask? I want to talk about AM radio for a second, because everyone knows the traditional AM broadcast that. It doesn't sound very good. It's very bandwidth limited in terms of audio quality, but you can listen to AM radio on a stream. And when you listen to AM radio, it sounds really, really good when you listen to it on the actual high def audio stream. Like for example, like News 1130 here, which is a big news station. If I go to their website and I listen to the digital version of that broadcast, it sounds really, really good. So whatever happened to the whole HD radio thing in cars? Is that completely dead now? Is that not happening? Because man,
people don't care.
I would listen to it more if it sounded.
They don't really care.
Well, but here's the problem. It costs. You have to get a new transmitter. That's $80,000 to $150,000 to get FM to do the FM HD thing. So,
well, you're talking about what your radio station have to bear the price of.
Right.
If the listeners wanted it, then you would spend whatever it took to be able to get it. People don't give a damn about HD1 and HD2. And radio stations make the mistake of thinking, well, because we're a radio station, we know more about music than you do, we're going to put oldies on our HD2. instead of the HD1 being a rebroadcast of our FM signal. People don't care. They really don't. There's too many other resources for it. So I agree, Mark, and I'd say statistically, HD services, Alex, are highly overrated and very expensive. And the statistics are that maybe of all the stations in the country, I'll say North America, maybe only about 60% of the stations are HD enabled. Those are the actual numbers. So I'd say that's a failure. How about quad? Whatever happened to quad radio? How about stereo AM? You remember that? That didn't work out because people didn't want it. They don't want it. It's like cassettes. They always thought cassettes would fail because people didn't like the reduced quality of sound. And, cassettes worked because in a car, you couldn't hear the dynamic range of a cassette. It just allowed you to play what you wanted. And you made a mixtape. And you enjoyed that mixtape. And you handed that out to your friends. And that was popular. Not because it wasn't a superior method of broadcasting or saving your music list. And now cassettes are gone because so many other things are better than them. But it's the technology changing, and it's also people changing, and their habits are changing. And I think the most important thing that you guys have mentioned here in the last half hour we've been chatting, 40 minutes we've been chatting, is the fact that people want to consume this stuff in bite-sized bits at their choice and not have to deal with all that filler.
Yeah, I think that's a huge
that's for the most part. That's the big competition for radio right now.
Ray Franklin's been nice enough to put together some statistics for us. Let me read through them real quick. Metric, YouTube,
Please.
Netflix. Global users, 2.7 billion monthly active users, 301.6 million paid subscribers. Market share, 12.5% of total video streaming, 7.5 to 8.4% of total video streaming. Daily engagement, 1 billion plus hours watched daily, 63 minutes average per person daily. Premium growth, 125 million premium music subscribers, 94 million users on ad-supported plans. The other interesting thing that we haven't talked about, you can have all these statistics in the world, but how much of them are talking about local content? And I think that's where radio's survivorship is going to be, is local content, hyper-local content. Tony Mobley says, plenty of room for Mark, so I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Nice. Thank you for the invite, Tony. Ray Franklin says, music streaming market share on the audio and music side. YouTube music is growing rapidly, but still trails the market leader. Spotify leads with 31.7% of the user share and 696 million monthly active users.
Yeah, I think you need to also put that into context. Like, you have to say, well, the statistics you just gave, if we're comparing music sources with radio, yes, absolutely. But all media, including news and talk, no, you can't make that compare. You can't just lump it in there and expect that number to hold up against a talk radio station, which probably wins in other context, in other languages, like, say, in car listening, things like that. That's a big battleground.
Yeah, it's really, and it's what's complicating it. Let me finish some of the stats. Tencent Music holds 14.4%, Apple Music holds 12.6%, Amazon Music holds 11.1%. YouTube Music captures 9.7% of the market, and it's projected to reach 1 billion active users by the end of 26. I mean, just amazing numbers. So
what conclusion do you draw from that, Mark?
Well, what I conclude from that is what we started out saying, which was people want things on demand. So they want to go to that when they want to watch it or listen to it or consume it in any fashion. I think what's important is for the local broadcasters to figure out how, with limited resources, they can put all of their content on digital so it can be watched on demand. I think the other thing that I was going to say is that with the current technologies that are out there, it's really hard for a small radio station to actually know clear statistics. How many listeners do we have? You can find out on your digital platforms because they all have analytics, but you're still relying on third parties to tell you how many people are listening. And in our market size, it's all done by diaries.
So can you afford to spend $70,000 to find out what Nielsen claims is your list? It's $80,000. Okay,
it's $80,000, and it's not a wise investment because the facts that I've heard are that they send out 1,000 diaries, you get 100 back. So statistically speaking, it's not worth the $80,000.
It's nowhere compared to the garden that YouTube has grown. That metadata that YouTube tracks on you, I think everybody is going to wake up and eventually figure out that this is the way we have to track listeners. They need to. I always thought it'd be kind of cool in a radio station that they had a little arrow and it just pointed to how many people were actually listening to your show at any one moment, so you'd know moment by moment what you were doing. That was fantastic. I guess you could do that with YouTube. You could build a little gadget there that sits there and says, well, that subject really tanked. We just lost 100,000 viewers on our program. So it's that's the kind of stuff that I think as we move into the future in the next decade, as you say, in the original question, that things are going to change. And, we have to get used to the idea that AM, it may just slip through our fingers and go away. Maybe they need to repackage it and turn it into something digital. I don't know. Well, it has to change.
I think a lot of what you're going to see in the future of radio is more local content, more interactive radio. So like what we're doing at our stations with Mukana, what we call Dial, the Digital Interactive Audience Lounge, is allowing people to post questions, chat with the host live, chat with the guest, and it makes it much more interactive. But I think what you're going to see these companies that can afford to do it to start to produce content for both their analog broadcast, maybe digital, but analog meaning over the radio tower, and then digital content that's going to be put on there to be consumed on demand and start to utilize social media far more than what we're doing right now.
Alex, I got a question for you or a comment.
Okay.
Let's say over the next 5 years or so, we come up with a radio station that's on FM and maybe it's syndicated around the country, so it has the internet, flexibility to reach lots of people. And the entire format is based on input from listeners via Mukana or something like that. In other words, we don't play any music at all unless it's been requested by somebody or dedicated by somebody. Let people program the radio station.
Yeah, I follow you.
Not statistics. And make it interesting in how you do that. Maybe that's something that's new. Maybe it's been done before and I don't know it. But what about that? What do you think that would people respond to?
Well, that might be new to radio, but that's not new to podcasts or YouTube. I mean, there are tons of shows that do that now, but it's on the internet. It's not over the air. So yeah, I mean, would that drive more listeners? I don't know. I don't think that's the way to go. I think that ship has sailed. I don't think anyone interested in that type of thing is going to go to radio to try to find it. I think they already found it, and it's on YouTube, it's on Instagram, it's on TikTok. It's already there. Now, I actually have a question for Mark. I want to pose this question to Mark, and this is going to be a hard question for you, maybe it might be easy. But as somebody who's obviously been doing this a long time in the industry, you've seen the ups and downs in the industry, you've seen things change, you've seen people come and go, formats change, all that kind of stuff. As somebody who has, an investment in broadcast, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? Or what kind of legacy do you think you will leave? Or what do you want to be known for, somebody who had radio stations?
Well, I think what we're striving to do at the Talk of Delmarva is become a place where the community has a place to voice their own opinion, to talk about all the subjects that matter to them locally, and to also interject that with what's going on around the country and around the world. So, I mean, that's what we're striving to do, is to stay a place that can be a place for the community to exchange ideas. Whenever I turn around and decide to hang up the whatever you hang up when you own the radio station, not the
headphones,
but yeah, headphones. The station will probably be purchased by one of the big people, and they'll totally gut the whole thing and automate it. So who knows? So I want to be known as the ownership, the type of ownership that wanted to grow it from the community. But we do have a question here from someone who actually works at the Talk of Delmarva. So
let's hear it.
The best ever audience gauge was in the 1990s when the Grease Man was on DC 101.
Oh, the Grease Man, a hoppity-gee, a hoppity-ga.
You could watch other drivers lean over to tune up their radios when the Grease started a gag.
Yeah, Grease had a repertoire of gags that he would do, and if you got on the good ship Grease, and he started, we're feeling rosy, and doing his little Grease thing. And by the way, you can get him on Cameo to wish you a happy birthday. I've tried to get him on the show. Grease was great. I mean, he was one of the original shock jocks. And to your story there, Walt, I remember just driving along and listening to Grease and syndication and watching people on a punchline just doubling over or laughing because he was that kind of guy. Mark, there's an interesting thing. I want to jump back a little bit to what you were saying about the future of big radio buying up the smaller stations and your legacy. I think that you are the precursor of what's going to start happening, because as these big guys are realizing, I can't make money at this, and they're pushing that envelope over and over and over again. Eventually, they're going to say, we can't make money at this. So what does work? It's what you're doing. And if it's live and local and hyper-local, the big companies can't afford to do that. They can't afford to split up the economies of scale that they've realized by owning all these stations and syndicating all these shows. It doesn't work that way. It works more like what you're doing. Oh, you're over here. More what you're doing. So maybe what's going to happen is that as these stations give up, instead of buying up companies like yours, maybe you're the guy that's going to be buying up stations that they can't make fly anymore. And I bet that at this moment, and we don't want to go into details, I bet there's stations that are ripe for the picking right now in your market that you could probably grab for a song and a dance and do the same thing you're doing at WGMD. So we're not going to talk about it because I don't know what your plans are, but that's where I think the future of radio
but you bring up
is.
a really interesting question there. How many news talk stations or community conversation stations can a market support? Because what you're saying is that, let's just say, for instance, throw out a number. There's 5 other stations available in a particular market, and you already have 2 stations in that market. What is the business logic to buy more stations to do the same thing?
Well, they're not all going to be successful. Maybe only the top 2 stations are going to be able to make money. Not all of them at an equal level. It just doesn't work that way in the world of high commerce out there in Radioland. But maybe 1 or 2 stations, and maybe there's subtext of different subject matter, even if it's just farm stuff or agricultural stuff or Latino content. Am I allowed to say that word? I'm off on the. I don't get the memo all the time. Maybe there's different types of things that you can do as a station in your market that's hyper local that reaches a certain group of audience. You can break it down demographically and psychographically. Right. I think there's room for that. And who's to say maybe a good idea could spring forth from your head and be the next big thing? I think it's possible. That's why you're here, to talk about that possibility.
So I think that you make some points there, and I think there could be a way to bring music into radio in a fashion that you talk about the local bands, you introduce the local bands, you do a history of the local bands, and then you mix that up with some of the historic classics that people want to hear about. I think that, like talk radio, people want to be able to call in and talk about, hey, I remember seeing so-and-so at such and such a concert and they did this and things like that. So you get the community involved and interactive. They get to hear themselves over the radio. But
that's being done in this market right now. There's a show called Hometown Heroes. Mm-hmm. I think your Rehoboth foodie is a musician himself. He does music-related things too. Right. I think there's probably an outlet in every market, including Vancouver, where Alex is, that there's some kind of local recognition, maybe some performance situations where they can do it. That's the future for radio, some kind of a stage, except it's a digital stage or it's a radio stage.
So Ray Franklin says, go buy the stations and shut them down.
Just shut them down.
Just turn in the FCC licenses. I'll think about that. You got to have the money to do it.
Maybe you can wait a little bit.
Yeah, Brian has a question. Is there a media technology that is essentially gone that you see making a resurgence like vinyl? I could see physical media making a soft return, not owning streamed media. I have thought about, I have bought irritates me.
Wow, I think that's one we toss over to Alex, because Alex, you're in the business
Mr. Physical Media over here.
Yeah.
Well, there are people. They're probably in a very small percentage, but there is enough for it to be a valid business, and they still sell quite a few Blu-ray and DVD discs every single year. So I think it's still a valid model. I think that's important. I think preservation of art is something I strongly believe in, and obviously a lot of companies believe in that as well. You got companies like Arrow Video and Criterion and there's so many, MVD Video, Synapse. There's all these different little niche companies that are interested in preserving films, and not just big blockbuster films, old movies, pre-code era movies, B movies, things that didn't make very much money. They want to preserve all of that, and tons of that stuff is not on streaming and never will be. And then, of course, there's all the bonus content stuff that you just don't get. Apple tries to do a little bit of that, but there's plenty of stuff on when you buy these discs, you get a whole different disc with just special features. Mind you, some of that has changed too. I know there's been a bit of a lack of special features lately. One battle after another just came out on 4K disc. Big fat zero special features.
And the other thing that's interesting is that, just to point it out, is that analog is still it's more popular now than it's ever been, whether it's a vinyl record or recording tape or getting recording masters that are 24-track. And by the way, those 24-track masters are getting old, and they better start transferring them to some suitable media. But we're still analog beings. I mean, isn't it interesting that the stuff that really sounds the best in the world of recording is still analog gear? The original Rupert Neve or Fairchild or all those, the LA3A and all the old limiters and compressors. It's analog. Analog is our ears are analog. A lot of bad digital out there makes it very hard on us people that are purists. And I know Alex is a specialist and his ears are trained to hear, things like harmonics, and he could listen to a piano played on a bad digital DAC or something. And I bet you grit your teeth and start.
I do. Yep. I'm not going to lie.
Maybe analog radio can make a comeback in some form or another, or maybe some kind of hyper, digital something hoo-ha comes out that's for audio purists. They're small, but they're very loyal, and they appreciate that. So
I think Mark is spot on. I think the future is very very hyper local stuff. What's going on in your community? I think that's going to be the most important thing. And with advertising too, online advertising, I think being able to target people in that community with Facebook advertising, with Google advertising, with ads on platforms like Instagram, all those platforms that Meta, the company that owns all those, I think that's incredibly important, and it makes it more relevant to the people that are living in that area, so they know what's going on.
But presently, isn't most of the advertising done over social media image only? It's not audio, and audio is what works.
Right, that's true.
So audio is what grabs you. Audio is what you remember, and audio is short. So I think that's going to be challenging right now with the technology that's out there for the digital platforms to have advertising that really grabs a hold of people's attention.
I used to create radio and TV commercials, and they used to be 60 seconds or 30 seconds. Now they're down to 15 seconds. So just to put it in context. Go ahead.
Ray Franklin says that there is Podcast 2.0 is building in the interactive and allows listeners to send bucks to the artist, host, etc. So that's interesting. The podcast tying into giving the host and the producers.
I vote for that.
Pay money. Yeah.
I'm all for it. And why don't you just for a moment? You're standing there looking at YouTube. How many of our friends can you point out to do a shout out to that have been here checking us out? This is our 100th anniversary show. We should certainly acknowledge.
Absolutely, let's do it.
Yeah. So we have Ray Franklin's here, Mark Britton's here. Hang on, got to scroll.
Grease
Tony
Man.
Mobley. And I'm sure I've missed a couple over here. It's easier for me to see, but I think we've got the same group that's usually on our show, including Jerry Hoyle, Ronnie Hofsay, Ray Franklin, Mark Steele are joining us in
Brian Miller, if you didn't mention him.
Oh, yes. Sorry, Brian. Yes,
yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, and we thank those people as our regular audience. And by the way, if you haven't done it yet, shame on you. Punch that subscribe button up there. That's very, very important. And I forgot to mention it half an hour ago, and Alex is going to beat me senseless for not mentioning this. If you ever have a question for us, and you can do it right now before we wrap up the show, ask.thelastangrydj.com is the place to go. And it's an easy way to get into your version of Mukana. It has the embedded video in the middle there, and you can shoot your question to us, and we'll do our best to answer it. We've talked a lot about what's happened during the time that we've been doing The Last Angry DJ. Maybe we should talk a little bit about what do we need as a program to turn into or evolve or talk about more that we haven't as a little bit of input. So that's your chance to be able to, get some input there. Before the show, Alex was commenting that we've kind of talked the old radio to death. Why don't we talk about something more contemporary about radio, or maybe more things about other ways of communication? Because after all, radio, podcasting, YouTube, they're all distribution methods of getting product out there. So how do we adjust our content to be more relevant to those people? Alex, did I do that correctly? I want to make sure I didn't put words
100%.
in your mouth. Okay.
Absolutely. And I think we should actually answer Ray's question, because Ray Franklin's put a question in YouTube chat, Mark, if you want to read his question. Which
sure.
is
Ray's asking, are we close to having AI qualified host for local stations? And I'm not sure. Does he mean that the host would be AI virtual host? Or
sure sounds like
it. The AI
That's what I think he's saying.
Are we training host how to utilize AI to get responses to questions from callers?
I want to see the first time an AI tries to pronounce Lewis, Delaware, which is spelled Lewes, but says Lewis. They're going to say Louise or
but
Lewis is. There's a lot of relevant
We have
things.
humans that make that mistake too.
True, that's true. But
we get newer
an
terms
AI
and they
doesn't
pronounce
instantly know
Houston
that in the 80s, the short-term LGFC meant something for people that used to go to the beaches. I mean, I know a lot of stuff about what was happening in Rehoboth and Dewey that no AI would ever know unless we told it. And I'm just not going to sit here and explain that. I don't think AI is the future for local live and local radio. I think it is maybe for news and weather and stuff like that. But then again, maybe radio isn't relevant for news and weather as a music format, supplement. Radio used to have to do all those things, and now they don't have to do all that. They can specialize in it, like being a talk show and talking about things. I don't think an AI is quite up to that task yet to be able to do that. And by the way, I mentioned it on the previous show, the folks over at iHeartMedia have gone out of their way to mention that they are 100% human, the content. It is not AI generated. They're making a point of indicating that they're not broadcasting fake voices, to be able to do their content. That's a pretty bold statement. I don't know if it'll hold up. Maybe they'll have to change their minds at some point. But Ray, to answer your question, I don't think the technology is there yet for it to be live and local. Yes, it can do it, but it's not going to be live and local in terms of its content. Mark, do you want to counterpoint that?
So I think that there's room for AI on the back end of radio, helping with traffic, helping with contracts, helping the salespeople or the marketing consultants or the people doing the creative content to put together ads that turn businesses into brands. I think there's plenty of room for that. There's even room for trying to do some automation on news and traffic and weather. But I don't see, at least at this point, I don't see having a virtual host being fulfilled by AI. I just don't see it being able to respond to the local nuances that come about on local talk radio. The models would just have to be enormous. I mean, someday the computers will be fast enough, but right now it's still going to be human for the, as long as I'll be in it, I think.
Mark,
we do have
any
a
other
question.
questions? Yeah, good.
We have a question here from Tony Mobley. Just curious, is radio bigger in other countries than it is in the United States?
Bigger per person or bigger as a total population? I'm going to go on the bigger per person or per sample, and I would say absolutely. There are some third world countries that don't have internet infrastructure, and the distribution method is radio. So in those particular areas, radio would be the first choice for getting disseminating information. Not everybody has. They guess they could. I mean, they're pushing it satellite delivery of internet. But those smaller countries or third world countries that don't have that kind of technology that we rely on every day, most definitely radio is a very, very strong influence there. Anybody else?
And radio is big in Australia. And it's interesting to me, before office hours, I never knew how much audiovisual equipment came out of Australia. But some of the software we use at our stations is from Australia, from a company that has, I think it's 140 radio stations. They develop some of the back-end software that we use.
Wow, cool. Alex, you want to add to that?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, that's all right. Sorry to call you out. I thought you had something going there. You had that studious look on your face, and I've learned to read that a certain way. I have a couple of comments or questions I'd like to make about what it's like to have your 100th episode doing air. First of all, it's a major undertaking. This is an achievement. And the reason that we did this when we first started it, when we started it, did you have any idea that we'd go to 100 episodes? I'm asking Alex. Did you have any idea that we would go this far? And how much farther do you think we can go?
To be honest with you, I was skeptical because I wasn't sure just the working relationship. Well, a couple of things. I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to get along for that length of period. And the second thing I was concerned about is, do we actually have enough to talk about? Do we have enough runway that we can keep this going? And I think all shows need to evolve. You don't want to stay stagnant. And I think we're going to continue to do that. And I think this is why also it's very important for us as a show. And, we want to hear from you, our viewers and listeners who listen to this show, because you really help us evolve. We appreciate your feedback. So if you have anything for us on the future of the show, where you want to see it go, we're all ears. We would love to hear from you because we want to make the show better. I think I would like to personally try to make the show more appealing to a broader array of people. I don't want this to just be about old media. We want to keep it relevant. We want to keep talking about how we're going to do things going forward.
And that was always the intention of the program, is to put me a little bit under the microscope as the old guy. All right, I'll admit it. I'm the old guy here, and see how it rubs me positively or negatively when you bring up the new stuff. I mean, I think that's part of the cultural je ne sais quoi that we have. I just said a French word between Alex and myself, for example. He respects me, and I respect him. That's one of the things that I think keep us on the right track. I might set stuff to piss him off once in a while, and I know what things really get him upset. So that's the other part of it. But I think that as long as we're moving in some kind of a direction where we have content to talk about that's relevant, and people like you that watch it have questions about everything from how is it like to be in a control room in a radio station playing records and tape versus today when there may not be anybody in there and it's a computer. And why is it a computer? And how long before the computer takes over the entire job? I think that shows an arc to a story that's very interesting. And if I mention something that's totally irrelevant, or what I say, my MySpace account that I still have, I expected Alex to bristle a little bit about that because not many people even knew. And Mark said, "I don't what's that? What's MySpace?" Well, it was one of the first that did what was taken over by Facebook. Well, Facebook's not going to be around forever; they're going to go away. So I really love the opportunity to be here to have this conversation, and it's an eye-opener for a 71-year-old guy to be dealing with no man's land for us guys that are older about where we get our entertainment, our information, and sadly, bid adieu to radio. If it means that AM is going to be gone in 10 years from now, so be it. That's what's going to happen. If radio changes, okay, fine. I always thought as a semi-retired radio broadcaster that I could go back into radio at any time, that there was always a job there for me in some capacity. It's not. And that was a bit of an epiphany for me to approach somebody that I knew that owned a bunch of radio stations. I said, hey, I'm kind of semi-retired. I want to get back on the air and do my radio thing. Okay, what do you think? Do you think? And they looked at me and said, you're too old. And that was a big wake-up call. So that's one of the things that pushed me into doing The Last Angry DJ, because that's what makes me angry or gets me upset, is that relevance factor. Maybe it's a little bit ageism, but it's a world of discovery to hear about these new things that are out there. And I rely on Alex to be able to enumerate them and talk more about them so I can learn about them. I learned a lot on Office Hours and After Hours, those two programs. And I get real-world input and information from my friend Mark Giuliani, who owns radio stations. He's dealing with these questions every day and, the evolution of radio. And as I said before, and I'll finish it real quick, let these guys talk, great ideas can come from anywhere. They might come from here. We might come up with something that's so unique and so different and been tried out. It could be tried out because this guy right here, let me get my finger to the correct position there, could make it happen on one of his radio stations. And if it's successful, you're at the epicenter of something brand new, a sea change in the way we do things. So you guys, your commentary?
Well, and I think that this is what you just said, Mitch, is a great PSA too. It's a great message that all things end, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't continue to evolve. You should stay hungry, be humble, never rest on your laurels. And this is not related to radio, but business in general. I know somebody who's going through a rough time, who has a very successful business, and he came up to me. He's very honest about some of the challenges that he had, and he said, I thought I was too big to fail, and it turns out to not be true. And so I'm not going to get into details about his company right now, but he's having a lot of problems. So I think that's a good message to just be humble. Always look for new opportunities. Always stay up to date with new technology. Never think that what you're doing is the safest business model that will never fail. And I think that's a recipe for disaster if you're that arrogant that you think you can't be replaced. So there you go.
I feel for your fan, by the way. I'm sorry that's happening, but it's happening to a lot of people out there. And I have similar issues, and I'll make this real quick, Mark. Sorry to interrupt. My HVAC broke down 4 days ago. I can't afford to fix it right now. I'm using a space heater. So I'm not looking to get a lot of sympathy. I'm just saying, if you don't prepare for your future, you're going to become rolled under because it's natural for things to become old and outmoded. And I just marvel at the whole thing. So I'm making arrangements. I'm gonna sell my condo and move on to something a little downsized. And that's what life is all about. Mark, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to. We're all sorry, Mitch. So hopefully that works out for you. But in any case, Ray Franklin has a couple comments to counterpoint our talks on the AI. And what his comments are with all the local data and demographics and knowing about the local sports teams, the football teams, the Rotary Club president, and all possible today through AI. 3 AI sources already turn content into podcast. Notebook LM is one. Local local is only downloaded from the local media. Getting enough local hosts with knowledge of AI can have the knowledge that AI has is just as unbelievable. And yes, it is hard finding people that are talented in a community that know how to use radio, and we'll get into a little bit of this in our next subject, but that know how to use radio and can carry a conversation and can do what Mitch does so well, which is make sure there's no dead air. It's very hard to keep conversations. No, it's really hard. It takes a lot of talent to keep moving and keeping that airspace full without
let's call it keeps the content rolling.
Right.
Continuity, we call it.
Yeah.
But thank you. All right.
So do we have anything to say to Ray's comments?
I don't know. AI is going to insinuate itself in every aspect of our lives. Get used to it. That's my answer.
Right. I think it already is. Any software you go to, whether it's software from any of the big firms, it's always popping in AI to help you out. So
yeah, everyone's got it.
And me complaining about it is going to make it any different. If I'm losing work because of AI, then it's the natural state of things for things to change. As you were saying earlier, I think it was Alex that said it, is that I just didn't realize that it would happen like that and that fast. So.
Well, I'm spending my time learning these tools, understanding these tools, and implementing these tools, and finding out ways how I can use them to my advantage to make my job easier and not be left behind. Right?
Yeah,
I think you have to.
And it doesn't help that I spit on you, AI. Makes me feel better, but it doesn't change anything. So.
All right, well, that's a great segue into the next subject. Would you be able to sit in any radio control room anywhere in the world and know how to broadcast?
Well, substitute for radio the word car, and just say it the same way as a car. Where the starter is, the steering wheel is, the brake and the clutch, if there is such a thing. You might get into trouble when you're making a car reference to. Mark, where was the brightness control? It wasn't on the stalk. Back in the old days in your Pontiac, if you wanted to hit the high beams, where was the switch to do that? Don't you remember? Your old Pontiac your dad used to drive you around in. It's on the floor. There was a switch on the floor.
Right.
But it would be alien to show a stick shift to a millennial today, and they probably go, what is that? A clutch.
But here's
Same thing with radio.
But here's a little bit of difference. While there's standards in radio and there's standards in the audio industry, I've never walked into 2 studios that looked the same. That's all true. Have their own nuances, and I think it's mostly because the local engineers have their own way of doing things, and they all have their own things that they're proud of being able to do. So they'll add their own little specialty things to make it sound one way or the other, or have a different type of mute button and have a different type of beeper. And so while you may not realize where everything is when you first sit down, after probably a half an hour, you could familiarize yourself well enough to know how that engineer set things up.
Yeah, there's some things, but that engineer also has to be concerned with the standards by which the monkeys that are DJs are going to operate the equipment. And I can tell you that I have built studios, and I have worked in studios, and then I've worked in studios where I don't touch anything, and I've also built automation systems, and almost all of them, I would just look around, and it would take me about 30 seconds. I could figure out what's going on, where the on-off button is, where the cue is, all the things that you need. I'm saying that as a radio guy that used to spin records and play tapes. All the way up to a guy that used to operate automation equipment. So the answer basically is, there's similarities, just like in a car. if you know how to drive one car, you probably know how to drive them all. Maybe you can't jump right into a Ferrari F40 and know how to put it into reverse, because some people don't know how to do that. Eventually, you'll get it figured out. So I was just trying to show there's a consistency that exists in the business where you have to have certain things that you do in the process of running a radio show that have to be there, or some analog of it has to live there.
Mitch, I heard that your old Ferrari was so old it had 3 on a tree.
It did not have 3 on a tree.
4 on the floor?
A Ferrari with a steering wheel mounted gear shift would be just absolutely sacrilege. And I've got a Mercedes now. I don't know why, but I've got one. I bought it 10 years ago. It does have a shifter, but it's an analog. I was going to analog. It's an automatic shifter. But the newer ones now, it's got this little push button doodad on the steering column, and that drives me crazy. I don't like that. So, yes, the answer to the question is I'd be able to sit in any studio anywhere and pretty much figure out how to run the show.
Well, Vic Hernandez recognized the 3 on the tree and the foot switch to change the beams from high beam to low beam.
So, Vic, you're not a young man then. You're a elder statesman. But I can make all kinds of references.
Once or twice.
Yeah, I'm the guy that walks around with a 45 adapter on my hat. If you know what that is, then you're of a certain age. And I like to doing that because people will see me in a crowd and go, "Hey, I know what that is." And I say, "I know what it is too. I used to use that." So anything else that we have to wrap up today's 100th episode of The Last Angry DJ? We appreciate you folks being here, watching and listening and asking your questions. And we hope that we can move forward into our next third year of operations. Thank you to my co-host, TD, producer, etc. That's what our good friend Alexander does, and Mark here. He's our on-the-spot litmus paper and cultural liaison to what we do and what we don't do right. And I'm just the old angry guy that will continue doing this as long as it's relevant. And to you, the folks that are watching and asking questions, that are just curious or want to be a bug on the wall about what was it like back then? We're looking on that continuum of what radio was back when it was super popular. We're going to be sitting here to the eventual demise of some aspects of radio. Maybe in the next 5 years, the AM will have completely shit the bed as far as formats go, and not around anymore. Sorry for the reference. So that's what we got. Alex, why don't you tell people how they reach out to us and give us their opinion or complain about my language on the show?
Absolutely, Mitch. You can join our Discord community. That is a great place to chat with us after the show all throughout the week. And you will see a Discord QR code pop up right here, hovering over my left shoulder. I am pointing to it right now. There it is. So if you pull out your phone, just open the camera app, point it at that, you will get invited into our server. We've got channels to talk about the show. We can talk about movies. We can talk about technology. We can talk about industry stuff. There's all sorts of stuff going on. So please do that. Join us in Discord. And of course, if you'd like to show your support for this show, there are numerous ways you can do that. One of the ways you can do that is by subscribing to the show that Mitch mentioned earlier. Please do that on YouTube if you are enjoying the video version of the show. Hit the like button, share it with a friend. And of course, if you prefer the audio version, we are available as a podcast, available on Apple, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Amazon Alexa. You can ask any smart device to play The Last Angry DJ, and we will be there. All right. Also, I'd like to mention that you can show your support by going to patreon.com/The Last Angry DJ. That's patreon.com/The Last Angry DJ, and become a coffee supporter at $2 a month. And of course, the fine folks at Point Software for providing Mimo Live, the production tool we're using to bring this show in wonderful 4K every single week, live streaming at 2 p.m. Pacific. That is 5 p.m. Eastern every single Sunday. Thank you to all of the people in the chat for chiming in. We really appreciate you. Too many names to mention. We tried and sometimes fail, but there you go. Right back to you, Mitch.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for being here. What did you learn on today's program?
I can't believe you asked that. I've never heard you ask that question before. So today I'm prepared with an answer. I learned that Vic Hernandez learned how to drive in an F-150 with 3 on the tree.
And that's a Ford product,
yes.
A pickup truck, right?
Yes, it is.
They have 250s too, I think, out there now.
Yes, they do. They can carry more weight and tow bigger trailers.
So that wraps up our 100th episode of The Last Angry DJ. We're moving into our 3rd year here. We hope to continue doing this, but we're only going to do it as long as you folks like what we're saying, or not necessarily like what we're saying, but are interested in what we're saying and are contributing input. We appreciate that. So let's have fun. Until then, let's dance.
The day I die.